Morning came and Vegeta could not walk, and he would not be carried into a building that files people. So he stayed in the ravine with his leg splintered in a piece of his own armor. His last word to Kael was not good luck. It was count the doors. Kael and Goku went without him. One arm still strapped across the ribs, and Goku was still coming, because that was never going to be a question. The record was not a fortress. It was a low grey building on flat cracked ground with no fence, no towers and no guards. And the door was already standing open. Nothing stopped them. That was the part Kael could not settle. He kept waiting for the thing that stops you, and the thing that stops you never came. Inside there was a corridor of numerals running away into the dark. Further than the outside of the building had any right to be. 10 steps in, a station woke up on its own and printed one line without anybody touching it. Kael leaned over and read it. It was him. Arrived. Goku looked back the way they had come, and there was no way they had come. Just a wall with a numeral stenciled on it. Count the doors. There had never been any. Station 11 was charred, dust on the housing, a chair pushed neatly in, 91 years of nobody sitting in it, and one live indicator burning in the grime. Kael pulled his own file. It came out longer than his arm and longer than his life, and almost none of it was in his handwriting. The release was there, signed with the code exactly as he had seen it, and under it, in the same hand, never once corrected. Do not reconcile, and under both of those, dated 11 days ago in handwriting that belonged to somebody else entirely. A third line. Reconciliation scheduled. Somebody had overridden a dead man, which meant charred was not the only thing still touching this record, and whoever else was touching it had not bothered to hide. One shelf across was the file for entry 16. Closed. Reason given, assistance rendered to an unreconciled specimen. That was Kael's sentence, written out neatly on somebody else. Then the intercom opened. It did not use his name. It used the designation off the side of the tank, and it told him he was 11 days late. And the lights came on ahead of them, one section at a time, walking them deeper, and nothing closed behind them because nothing had ever opened. The corridor ended in a room that was warm, and that was the wrong thing, because nothing else in that building had any temperature at all. There was a tank in it, upright, occupied. The tubing had not been connected to the wall so much as grown into it, and the voice from the intercom was coming out of the housing at its base. They could not see a face. A shape behind the glass, one aged hand laid flat against the inside of it, and a voice that had not been hurried by anything in a century. He had not been hiding. He said it the way a clerk reads back an entry. He had been filed. That is what the record does to a records officer who writes an instruction he cannot authorize. So Kael asked the only question he had carried for 22 parts. Not who are you? Not what is this place? Why did you pull me out early? And Chard said, because your reconciliation was 14 days away, and I had read your file before I stamped it. Then he explained the word, and the word was worse than the building. Reconcile does not mean review. When two entries describe the same specimen, the record resolves them down to one, and the redundant one stops. Kael stood there and did the arithmetic on himself. He was the redundant one, which is a sentence with an obvious second half, and he did not want to say it out loud. There was another entry, filed as the original, never closed, still listed active. Goku asked it for him, and there was nothing in his face when he did. Is he a person, or is he a copy? Chard said, the file says copy, and then he said the part that mattered. The file is the only thing anybody has ever asked. 11 days ago, the other entry moved. First movement in 91 years. That is what made a dead code touch a dead record. Chard had one authority left, and it was enough to surface one location. He said what it would cost. Pulling that entry would log Kael permanently as located. Kael said do it. The location came up on the slate, and Goku read it before he did and stopped smiling. Then the tank went quiet. not dramatically. Just out, the way a light goes out, a code spent all the way to the end. And the corridor opened behind them, because there is no reason to hold a thing you can already find. And back at the ravine, Vegeta was not alone. Entry 16 was standing over him with a dead black numeral and an open hand, and the location on the slate said Earth. The ravine held the last of the light. Vegeta was propped against the rock with his leg splinted straight in front of him, and the thing standing over him was not holding a weapon. It was holding out a hand. Vegeta did the arithmetic in about a second. Broken leg, no aura left, nobody close enough to reach him, and he refused the hand anyway because he has never taken one in his life, and he was not going to start with that. 16 did not argue. He reached up and unsealed his own collar instead and let the faceplate hang open and empty and said the numeral on his chest is dead. Nobody is coming for him either. Then Kael came down the slope with Goku behind him and the slate still lit in his hand. 16 looked at the location on it for a long moment. Then he asked one question. Did you surface this, or did somebody surface it for you? Kael said he asked for it. He said Chad spent his last authority on it because Kael told him to. And 16 closed his eyes and told him what asking had done. Surfacing a location does not find an entry. That is not what it is for. It tells the entry where the other one is. That is why they do not send collectors to a reconciliation. There would be nothing for a collector to do. The record does not carry it out. It does not need to. The record does not choose which one stops. The two entries do. Putting them in the same room is the entire procedure, start to finish. 16 has seen one finish. He did not describe it. He said only that he was the one still standing at the end, and that is the reason they gave him the suit. Then the location resolved properly, and it was not a facility, and it was not ice. It was a house, on a road, in a small cold town in the north of the planet they were standing on, because the original entry was never stored. It was placed, one release, one signature, one day. One specimen went into a tank, and the other one went out through a door into daylight. He has a name that nobody assigned him. A house, a trade, 91 years of ordinary mornings, and no file anywhere with his face in it. He has never been told what he is. He does not know there is a record. And 11 days ago, he shut his door behind him and started walking north, and he could not have told anybody why. Goku was the one who worked out what 11 days ago was. 11 days ago, Kael came out of his tank. One specimen, two lives, switched on together. He was not hidden and he was not hunted. He was given 91 years of a life, and then it stood up and started walking. The ravine emptied out slowly. Vegeta could not stand and would not be carried, so they propped him against the rock with water and what was left of the light, and he told them to go before he had to say it twice. Nobody argued with him. There was nothing left to argue about. Kael wanted to leave alone. He said it plainly. He said the location was his doing, the surfacing was his doing, and whatever was walking toward them was walking because of something he had asked a dying man to sign. Goku did not even look up. He said no, and that was the end of it. 16 came as well. He did not offer, and nobody invited him. He simply started north with them, faceplate hanging open, collar unsealed, a dead numeral on his chest, and no weapon anywhere on him. 4 hours in, Kael asked the question he had been carrying since the slate lit. He asked whether the two of them could simply refuse. Stay apart, never stand in the same room as each other. Let the whole thing rot in a drawer for another 91 years. 16 said that had been tried. He said it politely, the way you tell somebody their idea is an old one. Reconciliation does not need agreement. It does not need a fight, and it does not need a room. It needs the distance to be closing. It starts the moment the pairing is known to the record, and it does not stop because two people would rather it did not. It works on the file and not the body. Two entries cannot both be current. The record does not care which one it keeps. It only cares that one of them stops being a duplicate of the other. Kael asked how long they had. 16 said that depends on the distance, and then he said the part that took the ground out from under all three of them. It began when the location resolved. It has been running since yesterday evening. They walked through the night, the land flattened out under them. Fences appeared, and then a road with paint on it, and then a signpost with a town name on it that meant nothing to any of them. Goku noticed it first. Kael had stopped talking in whole sentences. He would start one and lose the middle of it, and stand there with his mouth working, hunting for a word he had owned his entire life and could not find anywhere. He said it was nothing. He said he was tired. He was not tired. 16 watched it happen and said nothing at all, and the nothing he said told Goku everything he needed. At dawn they came over a rise, and the town was below them, low and grey and completely ordinary. Smoke going straight up in the cold, one bakery light on, and nobody in the street yet. And on the road out of the far side of it, about 4 miles ahead of them, there was a figure. An old man in a heavy coat, walking north, unhurried, exactly where the slate had said he would be. Then he stopped. In the middle of an empty road, with nothing on either side of him and nowhere in particular to be, he simply stopped walking. He stood still for a long moment. Then he turned around, and he faced the rise, and he started walking south. Toward them. He could not have seen them at that distance. He could not have heard them either. He did not need to. He had felt Kael arrive, and something inside him had answered it, without asking his permission first. The old man came up the road at the pace of a man with nowhere in particular to be. They stood on the rise and watched him climb toward them, and none of the three of them moved. It took him 20 minutes. He did not hurry once. When he was close enough to read, Kael stopped breathing. The face under the white hair was a face he shaved every morning. Older by a lifetime, softened by weather and by kindness, with no scar on it at all. But it was the same face. The old man looked at the three of them for a while. He did not ask who they were. He said he had been expecting somebody for about 11 days, that he had no idea who, and that they all looked cold, and then he asked them in. The house sat at the end of a lane behind the bakery, small, warm, low ceilings. He filled a kettle and put 4 cups on the table without counting them, and he made tea for the man in the hazard suit exactly as carefully as he made it for anybody else. He told them he had woken 11 days ago, knowing he had to go north. Not a voice, not a dream. Just the certainty a man gets about rain. He had been walking ever since, and this morning it had let go of him. So he had turned round. He said his name was Tam. He said nobody had given it to him, that he had simply had it, the way he had simply had hands. He had mended shoes in that town for 61 years. People still brought him boots he had sold twice already. Then he said the thing. He said he had to apologize because he was going to sound mad. But he had the same dream every night of his life. Cold water, dark, an amber light that never changed brightness, and a slow tap somewhere behind his head that never once missed. Kael put his cup down so carefully that it made no sound at all. That was not a dream. That was the inside of the tank. That was the pump above his left shoulder, ticking at 9-second intervals, in the dark, for 91 years. 16 spoke without looking up. He said the split had never been fair. One entry had gone into a house and a trade and 61 years of boots. The other had gone into storage. Somebody had to hold the 91 years of nothing, and both of them had. And then the old man apologized, not for the dream, for the life. He said that if he had known somebody was in the dark for the whole of it, he would not have enjoyed the mornings quite so much. That was the thing that took the legs out from under Kael. Goku asked whether it could be undone. 16 said they had it wrong. They were not 2 copies of one man sitting in a kitchen. They were one entry that had been cut in half 91 years ago, and the 2 halves had started closing. It showed while they sat there. Kael went for a word, an ordinary one, and lost it, and stopped. And across the table the old man said the word for him, quietly, without thinking about it, and then looked at his own mouth as if it had gone off somewhere on its own. A minute later, the old man could not remember the name of the lane he had lived on for 6 decades. He laughed about it. He said it happens at his age. Nobody in that kitchen laughed with him, and he noticed that. And he stopped. He said one more thing before they left the table. He said he had always laid out 2 cups. Every morning, for 60 years, without knowing why, and he had never once been able to explain it to anybody who asked. He had simply always known there was somebody else. Kael said his own name out loud because it was the one word he could still reach for and find. And across the table, the old man said it at exactly the same moment, in exactly the same voice, and neither of them had meant to say anything at all.